the question is, and Kim, you get it, what does diversity mean to you? And what kind of diversity efforts and initiatives would you support as a board member?
Okay. Diversity, I think, to me, diversity means everyone has differences, everyone has differences of opinions, difference in many, many ways. And I feel that we all need to learn and work on being respectful, being kind, being helpful, getting along, being able to, ask tough questions. And I feel like our board gets asked tough questions all the time, and we could, really be defensive. And I try to listen and to really listen to what people have to say, what their opinions are, and take that into consideration when I respond. I try to be polite, be respectful. And I feel that we do try to teach our kids in the schools. I think every month, as you know, we have one of our schools comes to present at the board. And every single school, I think, whether it's high school or elementary school, always has a little bit of part of their presentation that's about social, emotional, and things they do in school for those things like respect and that. And I feel the school does a lot of things for diversity. They have a lot of programs. Ones that I can think of just off my head, we have a unified basketball program, which pairs kids from gen ed with kids with special ed, and we have it at the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school. They play basketball games, and if you've ever been to one, it's phenomenal. I just went to the elementary Olympic one, and talk about diversity and respect, and that's a huge thing. We have Rock to Change, we have Best Buddies, we have the Link program. There's all kinds of different clubs that value and teach each other diversity. The kids talk to each other about hard issues, I think, and try to remain calm and polite and kind to each other and respectful. So I do think that we do a lot about diversity. There's certainly lots more that could be done, but every one of our schools have a focus on it. And we also look at diversity in our literature. We recently just reviewed all the literature, and I think there was a grade level that we felt we needed more diversity with our, not in the curriculum so much, but maybe the textbooks. And so I think we constantly are monitoring that, and it's a work in progress.
Thank you.
Joyce. So I think what's probably going to be evident when you hear these 6 answers is that diversity probably internally means a little bit different to every person in the room. By a dictionary definition, it's our differences. And I don't think that you can have a conversation about diversity without talking about inclusion and putting in practices in place that don't just recognize our diversity, which is important, but also find ways to make it relevant. And I think our community has started a really good dialogue on that. I don't know how many of you were able to attend the Derek Gay Speaker Committee that the PTSA hosted, and that Ann Binstock, thankfully, was a dogged person on making sure that he came. I was privileged enough to work with her to help bring Derek here, and I learned so much from that presentation about how to make conversations about cultural diversity, all different kinds of diversity, relevant to everybody in a room. And I think that that's part of the work we need to do as a district, is really think about the language we want to use when we talk about diversity and come up with a common theme that works for our district that then we can begin educating our community on, and the logic as to why it's important to our district to have it. Because if you just throw words like diversity out there and then just half-heartedly throw darts at a board of creating programs for it, it's not going to be very effective. You really have to create goals and purposes, engage your community on why you think that's important, bring into the table people who have a vested interest in that topic and make sure that their voices are heard, and create implement effectively that uses community engagement, hiring practices, effective outreach that will move the needle and not just pay it lip service. That will require an effort to share why this work is important for all of us and not just underrepresented groups in Pittsburgh.
Thank you. Ted.
When I hear the word diversity, the first thing that comes to my mind, like Jory, is inclusiveness. I think it's very important. And I think about all different groups, and I think it's district-wide. I think we do a very good job at being inclusive, and it's across many different groups. And I think about special needs. I think about Quest. I think about things like the unified basketball programs that we run. I think about the many different programs that we run. And I think that knowing, as Kim mentioned, that we've been evaluating our curriculum to make sure that, looking for opportunities and looking for gaps to make sure that, there are no gaps, or if there are gaps, that those are addressed. Diversity is something that we should not let be divisive either, and that's something that we have to be careful about. It's a very relevant issue at this time, and something that we have to be very attentive to.
Renee.
One of the things that I talk to my students the first few days of school is about being different, and how they can look around the room and they see kids with glasses and different religions, different clothing, different hairstyles. They come from different socioeconomics. We have different multiple learners. We even have students from different LGBTQ community. And I think it's important to keep all of those kids in mind. And when I talk to my students about all of our differences, I tell them it's the one thing that makes us great. It's the one thing that unifies us, are our differences. And we need to keep that in mind as parents and as teachers and as community members. I too think of inclusion. Being a classroom teacher of special needs students along with gen ed students, I think it's important to show how kids, no matter their grade point average, that their ability and their effort to work hard is there, and it's important to make them feel welcome and comfortable. I think our school district here in Pittsford does a phenomenal job with diversity. I feel that my children have come home, whether they've talked about different groups of people, different programs that are offered within the district. I feel like our schools are very engaged, and I too agree that our New York State curriculum does offer a lot of different curriculum and different readings, literature. I think we can do better, and I would like to see that improve.
Thank you. Carrie?
All right, thank you. Well, first of all, what does diversity mean to me? I think first it means diversity of thought and respect for different kinds of thought and different kinds of abilities and the different backgrounds that lead to those different thought processes. And there's a myriad of ways that thoughts can be influenced, but diversity of thought is important. It needs to be encouraged and preserved. Now, what would I do? Well, I would find and build on the ways that are already in use to encourage respect for each other, and also, frankly, for our country, because I think our country has been getting a bad rap. I'm kind of a student of history, and I'm afraid that we're losing a lot of our historical perspective. I would also, although there is the yard sign that you see all around town that says differences make us stronger. I think differences can divide us if we focus on them too much, and we need to start looking again at what things are similar among us. And because that's really how we're going to move forward, is if we have common goals. Now, one way that we can help people understand and become respectful for others with differences, and then find the similarities, is to have them walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. So I haven't studied this, what's going on within the district yet, but tutoring and mentoring are great ways for children and students from one socioeconomic background or who have one set of abilities to learn about and help somebody from another background or who has a different set of abilities, and to discover more about themselves and more about other people in the process. So I think finding more ways for our students to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes could go a long way towards building a stronger community, encouraging respect and understanding.
Thank you. Jerome?
Well, I guess somewhat fitting down the last one on this question. So to me, what does diversity mean? To understand diversity is to understand what it is to be a human being. I mean, from a basic biological level, we are all we're all the same for the most part. But in the end, we are still, each of us are uniquely different, you know, regardless of skin color, culture, or whatever. We're all uniquely different. Now, it's as a person who's considered to be a minority, and as well as a person when you potentially be a board member, I would want to help support policies that's going to create and foster an environment that where differences is not is embraced, and it's also it can be a point of education, because really this is a school system. You know, this is an opportunity to learn about something you're not familiar with, and that's what really should be the drive home point for parents, for teachers, for anybody. You know, the first instinct for any time when you deal with something that's different is fear. It's a natural human instinct. But we need to promote with our kids that, you know, we need to really take an analytical approach, and particularly when you talk about human beings. Right? Again, I just have to reemphasize that we're basically the same, but there's very minor differences between us, just the way we think, our eyelashes, whatever. That makes us all uniquely different. We all have our own unique fingerprints, so to speak. But we need to create an environment and that we embrace these differences as a point of learning. And as you know, we are here in Pittsford, and we are to a certain extent going to have a different type of bubble that we live in. And every community has their own distinct bubble, and we have to understand that this is not the entire world. I mean, and then particularly when you look at the environment that our country is in right now, and the climate, you know, we're starting to become more of an insular thinking. Well, at least that's what seems to be being promoted, this kind of insular type of thinking where, you know, this world is huge, it's large, and it's only going to get more intertwined with the way technology is evolving, the way that there's more mixing and intermingling of people from all different backgrounds. We can't promote or even ignore the fact that that diversity is important to understand, that it's not going anywhere. And we have to have a way to foster learning and encouraging that this is that everywhere it's safe to be diverse and different. And so as a board member, I would want to look and investigate and make sure that is our policies and everything we have in place will support an environment where diversity is encouraged, is investigated, and it's an opportunity for all of us to grow as a person.
Thank you. So we're getting in on time, and I do want Jory to have the opportunity to answer a question first. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll get on to your 2-minute closing remarks. And this question is, explain your thoughts on the Common Core state standards, and are they needed and beneficial in the Pittsford Central School District?
I was waiting for that question. I have a little bit of a prepared answer, only because I had an opportunity last year as the advocacy chair for Genesee Valley PTA to actually do a parent presentation to the Governor's Forum as they were preparing to create their committees for revising the curricular standards. And I won't read that whole thing, but I'll give you a little piece of kind of what I talked about that. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, the state update to the ELA and math standards was released yesterday, and you all have an opportunity to give your feedback on that. But curriculum is individual to each school, and parents place the greatest trust in their own district's teachers and administrators in making decisions on how their children are to be educated and assessed. Educators and curriculum specialists who work day to day with the students should be conducting the standards and testing review. More local control and transparency are required for this process to be deemed credible by the parents of New York State. Teachers must believe in the instructional practice that translates curriculum into student learning. This requires training, trial, reflection, and correction to make instructional practice effective. This process must be supported with sufficient resources and time. The current standards in grades K through 12, K through 2 specifically, are a major concern. Educators and parents feel they are developmentally inappropriate. Standardized tests do have value, but only when tests themselves and how they are scored are viewed as fair, with timely and understandable results that are perceived to improve learning than merely grade students and their teachers. Children work best when presented with interesting and relevant experiences in a format that is at, not beyond, their instructional or frustration level. Testing must be balanced against the standards, curriculum, and performance expectation, yet must also provide timely feedback that serves to improve instruction. Introducing a teacher principal evaluation based on student achievement tests before instructional practice is stabilized has promoted undue stress, student anxiety, and teaching to the test rather than improving thinking and learning. Teachers and principals do need performance assessments, but those assessments should have the goal of improving instruction and providing valuable feedback to help them become more effective educators. It has not been proven that the current rating system will have any impact on improving instructional practice. When state testing is credibility is suspect, parents will not encourage students to do their best and will reject the assessment purpose or the test themselves as not relevant to their child's learning. I think the Common Core standards and revisions of standards are not new. You know, standards have been evaluated and updated over time always. I do think that the way that these standards were created and implemented was faulty. I do think the state is trying to take a step back and try to correct them. We'll see what those evaluations are. I am willing to take a look and see what they've done with them, and how our teachers and administrators feel about that is very important to me because they're the experts in that field.
Thank you. Ted?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Explain your thoughts on the Common Core state standards. Are they needed and beneficial in Pittsford?
Okay. I do believe that a system of standards are important, and I do believe that the new standards that are coming down, there's been a new process, and I'm anxious to hear how that's received. The new process, as I've read up on it, involved teachers and others from around the state, and it was a very inclusive process, and the hope is that that will yield a far better result than we'd seen prior. As far as the need for the standards, it's important to have a measure. And I think the decoupling of the scoring from evaluations takes some of the burden off of the curriculum. I think Pittsford's done an excellent job in developing its own curriculum based on the standards, and that has been reflective in the performance. So that's pretty much where I stand.
Thank you. Renee?
I wish I had more than 3 minutes to talk about this. As an educator for 18 years, I've seen our education system change. When I first started, I was given a curriculum guide by New York State that showed exactly what I needed to teach. And I teach 7th grade social studies, so it's all early American history through the Civil War. And since Common Core has been rolled out, I find that I am teaching less content, and I am teaching more skills-based activities, and not that skills-based activities don't have a place. They do have a place, but it shouldn't be the main thing that our kids are doing. I miss doing the projects that I used to do years ago that allowed kids to express what they knew other than sitting down and taking a multiple choice or a DBQ essay. And every now and then when I can, I will squeak it back in. But it's so difficult because you're right, we are teaching to a test. It doesn't matter what grade level you are at, there are expectations, and we need to meet them. And our students, I feel like, are paying a price for that. When I look recently, you know, at the New York State exams, our kids are taking them as we speak. They are stressed out. They don't necessarily or accurately, I'm going to actually read what I have. As an educator, I have seen and graded these biased and developmentally inappropriate state-mandated assessments that are purchased from companies that don't actually show the student growth that we as teachers could see if we created our own exams. I do believe we need to go back to locally created benchmarks that would be age-appropriate, based on the New York State curriculum, based on what teachers know that's best for their kids, what they have been teaching, and offer some timely and valuable insights to student progress for both parents and for teachers. I don't feel like getting a report 4 or 5 months after my child has taken an exam has any value. I don't know what they've done well, and I don't know what they need to work on. That is something that honestly doesn't mean much to me as an educator. I don't look at those scores, I throw them out. I do. And I will be honest, it's important. I do think districts need to have standards. But I do think that needs to go back into the hands of the school districts, the teachers, and the administrators, because they know what fits their kids best.
Thank you. Gary?
All right. Well, with regard to was Common Core needed, I think in there we go. Thanks. With regard to was Common Core needed, I think in New York State, not. New York State always has had good standards, and I'm not sure that Common Core is an improvement. In fact, I think it probably dumbs down some standards that we would have had, and it removes a lot of opportunity for diversity, the diversity that can make some districts really great, some teachers really great, and can allow some students to really excel. So I don't think Common Core is a great thing. I'm grateful that in Pittsford we have great teachers, and we're able to get the outcomes that Common Core is looking for using the more creative and thoughtful methods that the teachers are able to apply. So we're very fortunate in that regard, and I'd just like to see more about it. I feel it's important to have some level of standard at the state as well as then district standards. Testing is inconvenient and it's stressful, but it's the only measure that you really have when you're comparing students across classrooms, across schools, and across districts. You know, many of our students are mobile. They go from one place to the next, and and I can share with you, as our kids have been integrated into 4 or 5 different school districts. Each one is different, and if there isn't some good trail that is left in terms of testing and other kinds of assessments, it's very hard to know where to place them, because each district has its own opinion of how good it is. So I do think that there is a place for standards. I think it's at the state, and I think it's at the district level, and there is a place for testing, but I'm not in favor of teaching to test. I think that's not good for students, nor is it good for teachers.
Thank you. Jerome?
So as almost a lifelong student myself, I can appreciate how, standardized tests do have a role, particularly in certain levels that you have to get by in your academic career. You do need standardized tests to a certain extent. However, I don't feel that this Common Core and the whole principle behind Common Core is somewhat a little bit slanted, because it was not created by teachers, and that in itself was a faulty design. It does give some inflexibility to what the teachers can do. I mean, as a teacher, you need to teach to your student, not to exam. So it's not reflective of the aptitude of the teacher or the student, and so this one-size-fit-all approach to the Common Core, I think, and just in general, is a there's faulty logic behind it, and there really hasn't been any data to show that it was ever really a well-thought-out procedure. So I don't support Common Core. I agree with most of my colleagues here as far as that, this does need to be, as far as school standards, they need to be done at a state level with the administration and teachers involved.
Thank you. Kim?
I do think there should be standards. I think there's been so many problems with the Common Core for all the reasons everybody else has said. I do think when the way Pittsford dealt with it, our teachers wrote a lot of their own units, and I think that did make somewhat of a difference. However, I do feel one size doesn't fit all, and I feel as if we should have more local control of what our students need. I think our community, our teachers, our administrators, our parents understand what Pittsford's about, what our kids need, and I do feel that there has to be some type of testing. I feel the testing now is stressful, not timely, feedback's not timely. I do believe also that the new commissioner is listening, and I believe she's done a lot of things to try to turn it around. It's a very slow process, and I know the feedback forms just came out yesterday for people to have a time to input, but I do feel that there should be more local control over content and more age appropriate, and I totally do not feel that teacher evaluations should be tied to how kids do on test scores. I think we had All the years I've been on the board, that's something we worked very hard with teachers. In contract negotiations was the evaluation system for teachers, and I felt we had a very, very good evaluation system for our teachers in place, and I feel that it's that same thing, one size doesn't fit all, and I feel the community in Pittsford and our students, we know, we, the community, the parents, the teachers, our administrators know our kids and our teachers the best, and I do feel there shouldn't be, it should be more local control.
Thank you. On to closing remarks, and Ted, you get to go first.
I would like to thank all of you that came out tonight to learn more about the candidates. It's a testimony to the commitment our community has for education. I would also like to thank the PTSA, who has done so much for our district, helping to make it as great as it is, and for sponsoring tonight's Meet the Candidates night. We are faced with continuing financial challenges and ongoing desires to be the best of the best. Addressing issues like inclusiveness and social-emotional wellness cannot be overlooked. This will require steadfast leadership focused on student-centered and sustainable goals. I look forward to continued participation as a member of the Board of Education, helping steward toward these goals. I encourage all those eligible to come out and support the budget on May 16th to support me, Ted, and most importantly, the kids of the Pittsford Central School District. Thank you.
Thank you. Renee.
Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come here and meet with all of us and hear what we have to say and to learn more about us. And again, thank you to the PTSA as well as to our board members for hosting. One last thought is that I would like you all to know that I will be an ardent advocate for our students. I believe that education is the great equalizer and that all students deserve a well-rounded education that fits their academic needs as well as prepares them to be responsible citizens. It is my personal belief and practice as an educator that in order to meet and maintain any and all goals for the greater good, 3 components are needed. They are trust, it is compromise, and transparency. Without trust, nothing can be accomplished within a community. Without compromise, moving forward is not possible when there are many valid perspectives that need to be considered. And without transparency, the community will not understand why and how decisions are made. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Gary.
Hi, thanks for allowing me to share my views with you. To review, I'm an outsider candidate with more than 35 years of diverse and deep business, community service, and board leadership experience. Experience that includes customer research, working with unions, using large vehicle fleets to service customers like students, and marketing communications. As Pittsford residents and preschool owners, my wife and I have a lot riding on the success and the successful management of the district. I'd feel the same way if I had children attending schools in the district because I'd want the best possible education for them. In short, I'm up to and committed to the challenge of addressing how the board manages the processes it employs or oversees, the budgets it develops, the facilities it uses, the public meetings it runs, and the way it communicates with residents like you and me. And I guarantee if you give me your vote, I'll be inquisitive, candid, provide clear direction, and stand up or stand alone if it's the right thing to do. And why is that? Because I'm more interested in helping you than being reelected again and again and again. In fact, I think term limits might even be a good idea for the board. Although I'll vote for this year's train wreck of a budget, I don't like it, and I like the bad alternatives the board has left us with even less. The district's a big train, and it needs time to safely transfer to new rails, and I'd like to help it do that. Also, don't want to see another budget like this one ever, but I'm concerned that we will, routinely, unless we change the status quo and begin to populate the board with some people whose ideas aren't confined by the paradigms and relationships that make change difficult. We also need members with the skill sets to do the big job that needs to be done so that Pittsford schools remain the best in the area and among the best in the state and the nation, and so that future budgets are responsible, sustainably funded, and affordable for all taxpayers. Please take advantage of this rare opportunity to refresh the board on May 16th by voting for me so that we can begin to reset how our board listens to us, conducts itself, makes decisions, and sets the direction for our future. Thanks again for the opportunity to be heard tonight. I really do appreciate it. And visit my website, www.gcg-pcsd-boe.info for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerome.
Well, thank you everybody for coming out here and enduring this, listening to a lot of different perspectives. I want to let you know that I'm a firm believer in like a three-pronged approach to our children's success, and this three-pronged approach includes actively engaged parents, enthusiastic, great teachers who are committed to preparing our children for the future, and finally a school board and a school district that will provide the resources and facilities for a high educational experience. So as a father and a physician and a resident of Pittsford, I want what is best for our children, all of our children. And if I am elected, I will strive to make sure that occurs. I look forward to your support on May 16th. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim?
Well, I think Pittsford's, I believe in their quality education, and that one of the reasons we attract families to our community is because of our high education, and we have a history of success. I believe that during my tenure, I've helped the district navigate through many extremely challenging situations. I believe my extensive knowledge of the district is critical over the next few years. I think I can add value in many areas, especially areas such as mentoring new board members, addressing complex budget issues, and a lot of progress with advocating for funds and Common Core and testing. All those things need advocating, and I think we have a great community to do that together. My strong financial background and my commitment to invest my time and my energy in the school system makes me an excellent candidate for re-election to the Pittsford Board. My passion for serving the children and the families of this community hasn't wavered since the first day I got on the board until now, and I still feel so strongly about the collaboration that we have in this district. I do believe that there's always room for improvement in communication and more parents on committees and all of those things, but I believe that what I believe in is a good, solid, invigorating, respectful education for all of our children. We have a lot of diversity in this community with kids that need special needs and kids that are academically talented and kids that come from different socioeconomics, and I believe all kids should have the same opportunity for studying, for being on extracurricular activities, and I'd like to think that I could bring that to the board and remain a very important part of our Board of Education. Thank you, and thanks, Sherry, for moderating, and thanks, Maura, for running this evening.
Okay, thank you. Jory?
Well, I too want to thank the PTSA, not only for organizing this evening, but also for all that they do for the parents, teachers, and students in our school district. I enjoyed the opportunities to share with you my thoughts on what I'll bring to our Board of Education. People often use the word insider like it's somehow a bad thing. But if my sustained dedication to advocating around issues facing our parents, teachers, administrators, and most importantly our children makes me an insider, then I wear that label proudly. I personally think my involvement at many levels of our school district, within the Pittsburgh community and regionally, has helped me prepare to be an effective representative for you all. I hope to focus on improved two-way communication, promoting dialogue and effective practices towards diversity and inclusion, and bringing our community together to advocate with our legislators for more sustainable funding models and continue revision of our academic standards. Pittsford has always been ahead of the curve on providing our children with an enriching educational experience. It's my hope that we continue to work together to address our financial and academic challenges in a way that allows all of us to continue to be proud of this exceptional school district. Thank you.
Thank you. And that ends my responsibility for this evening. I will turn it back over to the PTSA.
Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.